Parents, teachers, and students are still waiting to hear if schools will reopen for in-person learning, with classes set to resume next week. Most kids in Ontario are scheduled to go back to school on Monday, but it's not yet clear if in-person learning will be paused as the province is recording record numbers of daily COVID-19 cases. Premier Doug Ford has said a decision would be made within a couple of days. Well, joining us now for the latest on the COVID-19 front is Dr. Peter Jüni, Scientific Director of Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table. Dr. Jüni, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's get into it and talk about the schools. This issue of we're waiting to hear from the Premier on whether or not schools will actually reopen next week. You've said that you believe schools don't need to be closed yet. Can you elaborate?
Well, I said it differently. What I said was that schools are not the next, to have more control measures in place, including closing them. I think the point right now is we're not there yet. We have just, some capacity limits, and that's it, not much more. And there's a lot more that we would need to do, for the settings, of adults to get this under control and to stabilize numbers before we come again, with this easy lever of just closing schools or not opening schools. So it's a matter of priority. First things first, and that's not schools, but it's very difficult. I understand that everybody is agonizing because we're in a completely different phase of the pandemic. So schools might be an issue to look into, but we should first do what is needed first.
Okay, so let's talk about what needs to be done first. What are you suggesting needs to happen right now to stop this community transmission of Omicron and see all the cases that we're seeing, which is really impacting the entire kind of case count and also testing?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's much in line with what we said, when we presented our projections when Steini Brown was out there. We need to take measures that actually just reduce the contacts of people. And right now, what we just see is that, the 50% capacity limits are simply not enough. So we would need to impose more capacity limits, have, a clear message that people shall work from home if they can work from home, so that life can continue, but at a lower pace with a lot less contacts.
Okay, Dr. Jüni, I understand that the Ontario Science Advisory Table gives advice to the Premier on certain health issues, probably schools. Can you give us any indication on what will happen next week with kids going back to school?
No, I wouldn't be able to tell you. We also haven't specifically talked about that aspect, of the school closure. We were too busy with everything else that went on. So I wouldn't be able to tell you. From my personal perspective, it's just really important to get your priorities right. And when I look at, when I had to walk through some parts of Toronto day before yesterday because our oldest daughter had an IT problem. I saw so many high-risk situations that would be unnecessary, and that's not about schools.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Jüni, let's talk about the COVID-19 case counts. Yesterday, we broke a record in the city. Also, our positivity rate getting close to 28%, something we've never seen before. This is really impacting the testing capacity and also kind of giving us a false sense of what the actual cases are. You say that right now, when we have a positive case, it's actually giving a 1 in 5 or 1 in 8 picture of how many people are actually infected. So what needs to be done in order for us to track the level of infection in our community?
We cannot completely. We can just look at the trends and see whether test positivity and case numbers go in one or the other direction. But it's not possible now at that level of infection to continue to track those cases to understand how many we have. That doesn't work. So we need to face the music there, focus on test positivity. Now we have additional parameters that are coming, of course, with hospital admissions going up. That's as expected. That should happen around now and started to happen yesterday. And we need just now to focus on at any given level of tests and test positivity that we believe, okay, we start to see the numbers flattening at the specific level. That's not where we are in Toronto right now, for example.
Yeah, and I read somewhere that you were suggesting that we measure the wastewater to track infection and also perhaps make it a standard for people who use rapid antigen tests at home to report those positive cases. Would that help?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure whether we can make it a standard, to report rapid tests from home, but, to have voluntary reporting in place and see what the trends are doing, as long as you don't think these numbers, absolutely speaking, are representative. This could help too. With the wastewater, I still need to have discussions with my colleagues. Things have changed, behavior have changed in wastewater, also with Omicron, and I'm not quite sure yet where this is going, but that's certainly something to consider, because Ontario actually has a really well-established wastewater program.
Okay, and Dr. Juni, very quickly, maybe if you have 10 seconds left, what do you think of the new data coming out of Public Health Ontario suggesting that Omicron is less severe than Delta? Is that good news?
Right now, when I just go out and also do my calculations, I take into account the English, the Scottish, and Ontario data. And what we see probably on average is 50% reduction in the risk of hospital admission. Remember, 50% reduction means you just double your numbers, and that happens every 4 days, and then you have compensated for it. That's by far not enough, but at least it's not continued worse news.
Okay, Dr. Peter Juni, head of the Ontario COVID-19 Science Advisory Table, thank you so much for your time this morning, and have a happy new year. Take care.